Hi, friends. Thanks for joining me for Children's Church. I'm super excited that we continue to talk about Advent. Go ahead and grab your book from your Crossview Kids Advent Kit, your storybook, Advent storybook. We're going to read the story from day number 13 because today is December 13th. And let's see, it is on page number 12, 13, 34. Day 13, page 34. Moses and the plagues. Dun, dun, dun. All right, so go get your book and turn to that page for me. Super excited to go over the story. All right, let's find out about Moses and the plagues. This comes from the book of Exodus, chapters 4 through 11. And our verse of the day is Exodus 7:5. The Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring out the people of Israel from among them. All right, here we go. One day, after many years had passed, Moses was watching his sheep in Midian when he saw a bush on fire, but it wasn't burning up. When Moses came close, God spoke from the bush. He wanted to save his people from slavery and give them a good home. God promised to be with Moses, but Moses was afraid. Moses asked God to tell him his name. God said, I am who I am. God told Moses that he would do amazing miracles in Egypt. The Egyptians worshipped pretend gods. They didn't know the one true God. God wanted everyone to know that he was the only God. Moses returned to Egypt to tell Pharaoh to let God's people go. But Pharaoh refused to listen. So God helped Moses and his brother Aaron show Pharaoh a sign of God's power. God turned the water of the Nile River into blood. No one could drink from the water, and the fish died. But Pharaoh's heart remained hard. Then God sent great troubles, called plagues, on Pharaoh's country. Egypt was filled with frogs, then gnats, and then flies. But Pharaoh's heart was still hard. So God made sores appear on animal and people. Then God sent hail and lightning and thunderstorms and swarms of locusts. Ugh. And God sent a darkness that covered the whole land. No matter how God showed his power, Pharaoh hardened his heart and would not listen to Moses. He would not let the Israelites go. God told Moses that he would send one last plague. This one would be the worst. Again, Pharaoh wouldn't listen. At midnight, the firstborn of every Egyptian family died. This time, Pharaoh's heart softened. Finally, he let God's people go. Pharaoh is not the only one with a hard heart. When we are slaves to sin, our hearts become hard too. We need a rescuer to give us new hearts and set us free. What do you think is the reason Pharaoh didn't want to listen to Moses? All right. So Pharaoh was in charge of the Egyptians, right? Okay. So Pharaoh didn't want to give that up. Pharaoh wanted to be the one that everyone came to ask permission to do something. He wanted to order people around and tell them what to do, where to go, what to eat, when to eat, who they could talk to, right? Where they had to work, when they could take a vacation, if at all. Most likely, he probably didn't let them. He didn't sound like a very nice guy, right? He wanted to have all the money. He wanted to own everything. He didn't want to give any of that up. I think that's why he didn't believe Moses when Moses said that God would let his people go and escape from that environment, escape from Pharaoh. But when God sent that very final plague where the firstborn of every son of an Egyptian died, that's when Pharaoh's heart broke. He was so sad, probably angry, upset, confused that his son died. And so he was just like, take them, take the Israelites, Go. I don't want to see your faces anymore. So he probably just, that was like a moment of weakness for him, right? So he like let the people go. He let the Israelites go. So Moses was able to lead them to the promised land. Have you ever been told to do something by someone and you didn't want to do it? Usually we have a hard time with this when we just want to do it our own way, right? Um, we think that we could just do it how we think it's going to be done. It's going to be easier, or faster, right? But sometimes somebody else might know what to do. Let's see if I can come up with an example. When I didn't want to listen to someone who was trying to teach me something. Okay. So for example, a long time ago, Mr. Dan, my husband, and I got a new computer, right? And we had been using Windows 97. If you don't know what that means, go ahead and ask your parents. They'll probably agree that Windows 97 was the best version of Windows out there. So anyway, Dan had figured out the new upgraded Windows and like where all the features were in their new position and what the new symbols or pictures of the items were. He figured it out pretty quick. He's a techie guy. He likes computers. He's built computers. He plays on computers. He knows computers. And so I'm sitting there trying to figure out where the heck the search bar is. I just wanted to type in like calculator so I could pull up my calculator to use it, and I couldn't find it. And so I'm like, what the heck? Where is it? It's not there, Dan. And he's like, oh, yes, it is. You just have to go to the start menu. And I'm like, I'm in the start menu. And he goes, no, you're on the desktop. And I'm like, that's the same thing. And he's like, no, it's not. That's just where your computer boots to. The start menu is the window button. I'm like, what window button? There's no window button. And he's like, in the bottom, this corner right here. It's got the 4 white boxes. And I'm like, I don't even know if that's what it was, or was it a circle back then? But after 97 came out or went away, I don't know. Anyway, it was a symbol, a different symbol than I see, and I'm like, oh, you click on that? He's like, yeah. So then that's where the search bar pops up, but it wasn't super easy to find for me. And then of course it was like, how do you shut this thing down? Or, why can't I find my files? Where did my files go? And he will say, okay, let me show you. And he'll take the mouse and I'll be like, no, don't, just tell me where it is. He's like, well, I can't verbally tell you for you to understand. I need to show you. I'm like, no, just tell me. So finally I'd be like, fine, whatever, and so he would go, you click here, here, and here. And so I knew the pattern, knew the picture of what to click, and I was able to find my stuff finally. But here's the thing. If I had just, first of all, I should have asked nicely, can you please help me figure out where the search bar is? Can you please help me figure out how to turn the computer off? Will you please show me everything that changed so I'm not confused? We probably wouldn't have yelled at each other. And if I had just been open to him taking the mouse and pointing and clicking on things, I could see the pattern and the pathway to go so much faster than me arguing with how he was teaching me. So since then, I have learned to let Dan teach me in his own way. And if I'm confused, I just ask more questions. So of course that's an embarrassing thing, right? Having to admit that you were kind of a jerk when someone was trying to teach you something, because then you have to go back and say you're sorry, and you have to apologize and ask for forgiveness, and you remember, and you're very, very aware that you're not perfect, right? And that you don't know everything, and that you can't just do everything all the time for yourself on your own. God is the only one who can do that. God is the only one that can be that. Like he said, I am who I am. God is the one true God. And Pharaoh didn't want to admit that. Sometimes we don't want to admit that. Sometimes we don't want to admit that God is the one who's got the control and knows what's going to happen all the time in our lives, right? Even if we don't know what's happening, when, or why, God does. And that's really what matters. And God had been planning at this point in time on a way to save his people. And this is just one way that he showed how he was going to save his people, by letting them free from Pharaoh. And now you do know, I mean, I'm sure if you remember correctly, later on in the story, Pharaoh changes his mind, right? And sends his people to go after Moses. But Moses and the Israelites still are able to escape. Anyway, okay, so, but that's for another day. It's just really exciting and encouraging to know that the Lord is Lord of all, right? Okay, thanks for joining me and my tree. I will see you next week, guys.